Hi, I'm Shelley Wood and this is my tiny sewing room where I make doll clothes sewing videos. Today I'm going to show you how to make this pretty flutter sleeved A-line dress which will fit many small bodied dolls and action figures. Like Mego action figures, Monster High dolls, Ever After High dolls, Mattel's Stacy dolls, Bratz dolls, and many more. You'll see a full list of all the dolls that this dress will fit when you go to my website, shelleywood.com, to download and print this free PDF sewing pattern. There's also a link to the pattern below this video on YouTube. Use the pattern to cut out all the pieces shown here. Lay one small partial skirt panel on top of the bigger partial skirt panel and stitch them together as shown, keeping right sides together. Do the same with the other small skirt panel. Open the skirt panels up like this and press your seams. Set the skirt aside for a moment so we can work with the bodice pieces. Follow the marks on the bodice front to sew darts in both bodice front pieces. Lay one bodice front on top of another, again keeping those right sides together. Stitch these together around the neckline. Clip the seam. For clipping, I recommend using Fisker's Minis. There's a link to these in the description below the video on YouTube. Before I discovered minis, I was using gigantic scissors for these tiny cuts, and I highly recommend the Fiskers. Invert your bodice front, which is what you see me doing right here. And press your seam. Sometimes I use a chopstick to help me invert little tiny doll clothes like this. It's something to keep in mind. Pressing the seam makes it lay nicely. Okay, lay one of the bodice backs on top of another, again keeping your right sides together. Stitch around the neck and back closure areas. Do this for both backs. Clip your seams and your corners. Again, I'm using my Fisker's Minis, little stitchers. Super handy tool. Invert the back pieces like you see me doing here, and press each of them. Now you have two backs and one bodice front. Lay one of the bodice back pieces on top of the front piece and stitch them together at the shoulder. Lay the other bodice back on top of the bodice front, and again you'll want to stitch those together at the shoulder. For super tiny doll clothes like this, it can be helpful to do your stitching by hand. I used a backstitch, and if you look in the description below, I have a tutorial for the backstitch. Next, open up the seams like you see here and press them to flatten them. And then we'll work with the sleeves for a little while. Fold the long straight side of the sleeve once and then a second time. Whip stitch along this folded edge to create a hem. Now your sleeve looks like this on the wrong side, and it looks like this on the right side. Follow these directions for both of your sleeves. Lay one of the sleeves next to the bodice's underarm area, keeping right sides together. Stitch from the underarm to just 1 centimeter shy of the shoulder seam. Here's what you should have so far. Okay, now what we're going to do is wrap that sleeve around the other underarm. So you're going to stretch the sleeve around to the back's underarm, just like you see me doing here. Okay, so this is what we have, and we're going to move that around to attach it at the underarm. And this really makes sleeves easy to do, especially for tiny doll patterns. Stitch from the underarm to just shy of the shoulder seam once again. Now your sleeve is unattached in the middle, so there's actually an opening there. Now I'm going to show you what I have so far because it can be confusing when you look at these tiny sleeves. Alright, so here we look at it in 3D. Alright, it's attached at the underarm area but not at the shoulder. And we're going to gather it right here before we attach it. So along the raw edge of the fabric in the middle, gather the top of the sleeve. Now your sleeve will look like this. So it almost looks like it's attached, but see, I can stick my finger through there, so it's not quite attached. It's just gathered at the top, and this is what creates that flutter in the sleeve. So now we need to attach it. I'm going to start right here where I ended my underarm stitches. Okay. Attach the gathered part of the sleeve to the shoulder, closing up the gap at the top of the sleeve. Now your sleeve should look like this. Follow the same directions to attach the second sleeve. Now your dress bodice will look like this. Fold one sleeve out like you see me doing here. Okay, so they're kind of pointed in toward the neckline. You're going to fold them out and then fold the dress bodice in half like this. Okay, so we fold it out and then we just take that back and fold it down so that we can connect the front and back in the side seam. Stitch from the sleeve's hem across the underarm and down the side of the bodice. Here's a closer look at my side seam. Fold the other back down. Okay, so again you want to pull that sleeve out and then attach right where my left thumb is. Stitch this side seam as well. Now your bodice should look like this. Turn the bodice right side out. So you're going to pull the sleeves through like this and they make a nice little flutter. Very cute. And now it's time to work with our skirt again. Along the longest rounded edge of the skirt, fold it once and then a second time. Whip stitch to create a hem. And now your skirt will look like this. With right sides together, pin the bodice to the skirt at each panel seam, leaving 1 centimeter of skirt hanging free from the bodice. Notice how the sides overhang past the bodice. Leave that overhang on both sides of the bodice. Here's a video clip to show you what I mean. Okay, so I've got my bodice and skirt right sides together, and I'm going to pin where the panels meet in the skirt to the edge of the bodice closure area. Okay, this leaves a little bit of the panel hanging over the side of the back closure. And there's kind of a gap in the middle of the skirt as well. Okay, you see that gap? You want that. You're going to gather the excess skirt fabric at the front and pin the gathered part of the skirt to the bodice. Now it's barely noticeable, but the front of the skirt will have a very slight gather. Backstitch, attaching the bodice to the skirt, and now your dress will look something like this. Flip the bodice up. Now as you do this, those side panels are going to kind of take a dip. Okay? And as they do, you can just fold them in like this to create a back closure. So as you flip it up, the sides will kind of curl. Allow the curling sides to start a hem, folding once and then a second time. Whip stitch to hem the back closure about 1.5 inches. Hem the back closure on both sides of the dress. Fold the dress in half, right sides together. Okay, so I've got a back closure area now at the back of the skirt, and then there's this open area that's still raw edges, and I need to seal that up. So I insert my needle at the hem and stitch to close the back of the dress. From the bottom of the dress to the closure hem, so you want to make sure that you stitch all the way up to that closure. Now invert the dress. It is such a cute little dress. I really love this dress. Add a couple of snaps to the back, and now you're ready to try it on a doll. For more free printable PDF sewing patterns to fit dolls of many shapes and all different sizes, please remember to visit my website, shelleywood.com.
What if there was an easy way to take a big doll pattern and resize it to fit a little doll, or vice versa? I'm Shelley Wood, the doll clothing designer, and in my pattern alteration class, I'm going to share with you my resizing formula.
Pattern alteration is when you take a pattern that you already own and you make changes to it. Let's say a dress doesn't fit your doll quite right. I'll show you how to create a gusset to extend the dress's bodice. Along the same lines, I'll show you how to use a doll's body measurements to lengthen and shorten shirt sleeves, and to recreate the pants patterns you already own so they will fit dolls of different shapes and sizes. Following my instructions, you'll learn how to reshape dresses and skirts, making them fuller or less full depending on the look you're going for. With this collection of more than 40 videos, you'll use my measurement guide and dozens of tips and tricks to create a full wardrobe for the doll or dolls of your choice.
I invite you to join me. We are going to have so much
fun.